Now, I am wise and very learned in a good many things at this point in my life, at the ripe old age of 25. But you know what I don't understand? Why so many people have some hatred for harem romance. Well, at least that's what I've experienced anyway. I mean, it's fiction, and especially fiction where everyone wins. There is no losing heroine, and we don't have to fight over who's better. Hina or Chinatsu, Ram or Amelia, Kana or Mina.
Both. Both is good.
That last one's a little bit of a niche seasonal reference. If you don't get it, well, too bad. The thing is, I have absolutely loved my time watching Tying the Knot with an Amagami Sister, as opposed to a lot of people who generically despise harem scenarios. But I respect your opinion if that's you, even if it's a dumb opinion. Tying the Knot with an Amagami Sister does a lot of things that I find really good. The story of this series is that Uryu Kamihate, an orphan with no faith in gods or supernatural phenomena who wants to become a doctor, is accepted into a shrine in Kyoto as his place to stay as he prepares to go to medical school at Kyoto University. His rather standoffish personality and lack of belief in anything spiritual immediately put him at odds with the three sisters living at the shrine, and their relationship is only put under more stress as it's immediately revealed that part of why Uryu was allowed to live at the shrine with the girls and their grandfather was because he was to become the heir to the shrine, which requires him to marry one of the girls. Honestly, this series has become one of my favorite romance series for how it's handled character arcs, for the creative aspect of also using supernatural phenomenon to enable a few interesting choices and tropes, and for all around just being an entertaining story. In anime, characters matter a lot to me, and Tying the Knot is very heavily focused on exploring its cast to the utmost in order to flesh out important people it covers. Not the least of these being Uryu, the main character himself. In taking up his new life at the shrine, he's forced into a lot of new experiences, many of which are supernatural. But the real big thing is that you quickly learn that in spite of Uryu not exactly being keen on believing in gods, he's more than willing to ignore that fact for the sake of others, especially when it comes to the girls at the shrine. In direct contrast to his rather prickly personality at surface level, he actually turns out to be a very kind and caring person. One who over the course of this series gets more entangled with the fate of the shrine he didn't really care much for at the beginning, all for the sake of three girls who largely wanted nothing to do with him at the beginning. We learn he's deeply caring, earnest, and thoughtful, though not entirely perfect as he can get a little full of himself from time to time, and that does cause him a bit of pain. But the good parts of him are more than enough to gradually build up a solid relationship with the female members of this story. And the points where things finally click during these times are very well executed. Like his effort to help Yuna out in the face of their mentor rejecting all three sisters, or like when Uryu finally accepts his role as the heir to the shrine and accepts the existence of the supernatural. But while Uryu's character development happens over the course of many episodes and in many different ways, the sisters experience theirs in short, focused arcs, each centered around a different supernatural phenomenon that helps to emphasize what each is going through, builds their connection to Uryu, and tells us a little bit more about who they are. With Yae, it's a time regression with a trip to the past that sort of explores how she came to be at the shrine. With Asahi, it's a time loop that subjects her and Uryu to the movie Groundhog's Day, and from there you actually get to see a lot of the things that she wants to do and her struggle with trying to decide how she wants to live her life. And with Yuna, it's the good old body swap trope. Except the god behind it decides to do a bit of trolling and repeatedly swap them back and forth at inconvenient times, thus resulting in them only really getting part of the picture of each other's lives, and ultimately forcing the two of them to be honest about their intentions of who's going to inherit the shrine. And that's just about half the things that Uryu experiences in spite of his belief that there is no such thing as gods and spirits. The usage of this supernatural element makes the show unique in a way that really brings it to life for me, with every part of it seeming to work well at character progression and staying relevant to the main course of the plot and not deviating too terribly much. But that element only really serves to emphasize the existing, well-written, endearing, and compelling characters that the story is centered on. Yae, the eldest, fills the role of the ditzy, aloof, older sister who seems to only be about half there at any given moment, and can prove to be a major handful in spite of her being the eldest. Yuna, the middle child, tries to put on the diligent and proper facade for those close to her. But her own ideals end up becoming a huge burden on her in many cases and can even paralyze her into being painstakingly slow at many things and force her to ultimately be very stubborn and not rely on people. And finally, Asahi, the youngest of the girls, is the one rushing to grow up, pretending to be far more mature than she actually is, and struggling to really figure out what it is she wants out of life. If not for all of their personalities being so well constructed to work together in this series, and if not so well explored and expanded upon throughout that series, I doubt it'd have been as fun to watch for me. Each of the girls is ultimately a fantastically written character who earns their spot in the cast and genuinely makes it difficult to pick a favorite. And even side characters are fun and interesting enough to spice up the story and add a little bit of lore with a few unexpected scenes and twists. And amid all the character work, we do have a good amount of humor that brings some good old romance tropes in for comedic effect. It's mostly Uryu being subject to the various antics that each girl throws at him. And there could be the argument that it is a bit tropey at times, but everything uses tropes. It's really just a matter of how well you dress them up. That said, there's really never a dull moment with this show between the comedy and the character work and the overall story. And that's really the heart of this show, if you ask me. There's the romance element, but it is the character work and the interaction between all the characters that provides comedy and some really good heartfelt moments that make it good to watch, one of my favorites. So while it might not be the perfect romance, it's a very good one that I think gets slept on simply because it's a harem scenario. I find it very fun. I look forward to it every week since it started airing. It's comedic, packed with compelling characters, and uniquely creative in a way that mixes supernatural events and romance to explore deep into its characters in a way that I don't think many other series try to do. It's a show I hope more people will check out because I believe it deserves the attention.